Thanks for having me. Thanks for inviting me to Barcelona. This is my first time to Europe. I have not traveled a lot. I've been to the United States to give talks, and to see the sites. But this is my first time getting here, so I'm very excited to be enjoying your hospitality. My slideshow, my talk today is on my blog, and so you can take a look at it anytime. The book that I co-edited, my talk today is kind of ripped from my chapter. You can read it for free, and it's on my blog right now at the same place where you can find my slides. So if you go to my blog, you can access what you'd like. So I want to talk today a little bit about whether schools conceal or reveal learning, and I think for too long they have been concealing it, and we've been concealing it behind tests and grades. And so I want to talk about unearthing why we go to school, and that is to learn, and to actually talk about learning instead of these tests and grades that tend to distract us so badly. I want to make a point that I am a teacher, and I continue to teach. I teach 126 children every day I go to school. I have over 30 students in my classes, which are too many, but I actually do the work. And I'm going to linger here just for a moment, because too often I find that we have education conferences and there's no teachers. We don't invite them. We don't talk with them. We talk at them. We do a brilliant job of talking at teachers from a distance, by the way. Don't get too close. And God knows you don't want to touch them because they work with kids, right? But we have to do a better job of actually involving them in these discussions. And I am disturbed by how often we will have people on stages and pay them gross amounts of money to talk about something that they've never done. They've never actually taught children, worked with them for longer than an infomercial to get a 5-minute video clip. So I am a middle school teacher, and I have taught children in the hospital, so with mental health problems, and I've taught children that don't have mental health problems. But I've actually worked with kids, and we have got to start involving teachers in this discussion. This doesn't mean that if you haven't taught that you can't talk about it, but good grief, we have done a very poor job of involving teachers with education reform and making schools a better place. So my history, I'm in my 15th year of teaching in Canada, and I want to make it a very important point that I'm a public school teacher. So I think, if I'm getting this correctly, that would mean that I would be working at a state school here. This is extremely important. I work at a school where we accept all children who live near the school. If you live near the school, we cannot tell you, you cannot come here. You go to school here, period, whether we like you or not. We should like all children, but we know that there are school systems and schools, whether we call them private schools or charter schools or I don't know what other names we can come up with, where they get to accept or deny the children that are in their classrooms and in their schools, and that's not okay. Public education is for everyone. If we're going to demand this, then we actually have to fund and support schools that accept all children, not just the smart ones or the ones that have money. It only took me about 6 years before I wanted to quit teaching, and mostly because I was teaching the way I had been taught, and some of it was fairly mindless. I was in autopilot. You come in the morning, you create lesson plans where you do all the talking and the children do all the listening, and you give worksheets and have textbooks, and you assign homework, and then you do tests and quizzes, and then you give grades. These are just things that we've done. They were done to me, and so I'm now doing them to the kids. And I was pretty miserable, and I wanted to quit. And so I had to make a decision. I either quit or I needed to find a better way. So I started doing a lot of professional development. I started trying to figure out how else can I teach? How else can I engage kids so that I'm happier and they're happier, and I'm teaching and they're learning. And so I started to just Google, schools without grading or schools without homework or like anything. Just give me some kind of an alternative. How else can I possibly teach? And I came across my first Alfie Kohn article called The Costs of Overemphasizing Achievement. And I read it and I was fascinated. It was almost like I was taking a look into another world of how we could possibly teach without grading or teaching without doing it the exact same way it had been done to me. So on this journey, I came to see that one of the largest obstacles to improving school is our memories. I kind of wish we would all have amnesia for a little while so that we could forget how school was done to us so that we can get past that and do a better job. That isn't to disparage our past, and it's not to say that we don't owe a lot to our previous past teachers or parents, but we would honor them by saying that, thank you, you did the best you could, and now I'm going to do the best I can by actually not just replicating, but taking what you've done with me and trying to be better. That shouldn't be insulting, but we need to try to do better. One of the stories I use is two young goldfish are swimming in the water, and they are swimming together, and they come across an older goldfish. And the older goldfish says to them, "Morning, boys, how's the water?" And the two younger fish just keep swimming. And finally, one of the younger ones, after the old goldfish is long gone, turns to the other younger one and says, "What the hell is water?" I think school is the water. We've been in it for so long, we can't see it. We don't even know it's there. We're on a form of autopilot where we just do it. But we can't even describe it because we're so used to it. I want us today to pluck ourselves out of the water and look at it for what it is. Because I don't know if you've ever been in a fishbowl or looked through water, but it changes your perspective. It bends the light. It refracts the light. And so it's going to change your perception whether you're in the water or out of the water. I want to get out of the water for a little bit and let's take a look at it. Let's take a look at what this fishbowl of school has been doing to us. Because I think there's things that we could change. If I had to simplify sort of a shift, I think what we're used to is being passive. We're isolated. It's competitive. School's being delivered to us. And it's quite standardized. I want to shift to something a little more progressive. And we've heard many people talk about having school more active. Some of the demos yesterday talked about children being not only physically active, but intellectually active. More social. Having the kids, learning is a social endeavor. It's very rare that we actually learn anything while not interacting with others. And I want us to be more collaborative. But that means we have to stop competing. And there is no race to the top. This sentimentality that we're in a race implies explicitly that we're competing against one another. We've got to stop doing this. It's easy to talk about collaboration, but if you're still pitting kids against each other, that's a problem. We're pitting schools against each other. If you're competing, you're not working together. Stop it. We need to understand that what the research has been telling us about how children construct their own understanding and make things more personalized. So I want to make this shift. So I'm going to skip this. Actually, we're going to watch this. Sorry, let me back up here if I can. See if I can get this to work. I think I messed it up. Is there a way we can...
I'll be fine.
Have fun.
I'll be fine.
Have fun.
I'll do it. Well... I'll be fine.
Can we just go to YouTube?
I'll do it. Well...
Here, actually, that tab right there, George. Go to that tab right there. Yeah, please. There we go.
I'll be fine.
Have fun.
I'll do it. Well, here goes something, I guess. Well, okay, you can do this. I'm gonna jump.
You got it.
Whoa, my ski's slipping off.
Just remember, never snowplow, okay?
No snow plows.
Keep it straight and you'll be fine.
Okay.
Same thing you do on the 20.
Straight. Do you go faster on the in run?
Little bit.
A little bit?
Yeah.
Is it any steeper, do you think? Not much?
Same steepness, it's just longer.
Well, just longer. Just longer. Just a bigger 20, that's all.
Yep. Have
It's
fun.
a bigger 20.
Go ahead. You got this.
I got it.
It's fine. You'll be fine.
Okay. Here
The longer you wait, you'll be more scared.
I go. Just the suspense at the top at the first time freaks you out. That's the only thing. It's so fun. Huh? 60 seems like nothing now. Whoa!
I'd like you to turn to a neighbor, and I wrote a post and I titled it, "Here's what learning looks like." That happens in class too. Yeah. I'd like you to turn to a neighbor, and I'd like you to talk about why can that be a model for what school should look like? What's cool about that video? I'd like to take a minute, turn to a neighbor and talk. What's cool about that video? Yes. Yes. Yeah. Learning can be like that sometimes. Yeah.
Joe's, and you see his hands behind the kid. Reminds me, I must have got this skill. Who was the kid? You shoot that video?
No. It's just I came across it on YouTube, and I thought it was an excellent example of what school could look like in a minute. No, I have nothing. I don't know where it was taken, and no.
So you had a whole narrative around you.
Yeah, I just found the video on YouTube. That's, yeah. Yes. All right, I'm going to bring you. Let's come back as a group, and I would like to ask you for some input here. What was cool about that video? Why in 1 minute could this be an example of what school and learning should look like? Can I have some help, please?
It's risk-taking.
Yeah, sure, it's risky. Learning's risky. And we heard yesterday we have to create environments where the children can take risks and still feel safe. Both physically safe and intellectually safe. More, please.
Transformation.
Tell me.
I did it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, a simple realization that's not simple.
Not simple at all.
Not simple at all.
For any of us.
Yeah. Yes.
Empowerment.
She had to do it. We could not do that for her. But we had to empower her to do it. And then we were there as teachers and coaches, but she had to do the work. Yes. Yeah. And which I think is different than rewarding. It's not manipulative. I make a very clear distinction between encouragement and things like praise or rewards. We're not throwing verbal manipulation at children. The encouragement has got more to do with empowerment, not control. They're different. More.
I think they
Yes.
want a space to express how she felt or the kid felt about the learning process.
Yeah.
The fear, the worry, she was able to talk that out.
There was some reflection there, wasn't there? But it had to happen after the learning, and it didn't have to take forever. It was just a moment of reflection.
But also before she was going to.
Yes, that's true. There was. You're right, actually. Yes.
I don't think we make enough of the word encourage. The best word is courage. And what we're trying to do is give them courage. Sometimes encouragement is seen as comforting you, I'm with you and whatever. But actually, you're trying to make them braver.
Yeah.
And I think we don't. Something it's called, tough up. I mean, I often say to my kids, tough up.
Yeah.
But I think it's quite an important thing to do in teaching is to give kids courage.
There's a bit of a paradox here. We want to almost put ourselves out of a job so that they can grow up and go about their lives without us. But that doesn't mean we were meaningless. We played a very important role as teachers and parents and coaches. But we encourage them to be autonomous learners. Yeah. Okay. So some of what you've come up with is some of what I've reflected on. I want to talk about this part, the formative feedback. What role does the encouragement and the teaching, what do we say to kids? How do we work with them? Let's dive into this. I've had some people, when I tell people that I don't grade students, there's no tests and grades in my class, they'll say, well, it's almost like they get the impression that I hate assessment. I don't hate assessment, but I want to reclaim the language. Technocrats have hijacked education. Bureaucrats have as well. And they've stolen our language. And assessment has been bastardized into meaning measurement. And it's not the same thing. Assessment is not measurement. I assess my students every single day. But it's not in maybe what's the conventional sense. I don't measure my students, I assess them. Assessment is not a spreadsheet, it's a conversation. I use this as a sort of a tagline to try to simplify to people what assessment is and is not. It's a conversation, it's not a spreadsheet. But it's a conversation that needs to take place between the teacher and the student. See, in real estate, I don't know if you talk about this or have this saying, but in real estate, it's location, location, location. In education, it's relationships, relationships, relationships. But you can't bar graph a relationship. The root word for assessment is assidiere, which actually translates to sit beside. And it's important to understand the root of this. To sit beside meaning implying that the teacher and the student would actually spend time together, getting to know one another. So you heard the coach in the background giving advice. She asked questions that she needed timely information back. And so he said, remember, don't snowplow. She needed to know that. But it was a judgment-free statement. She was just giving the information that the kid needed to be better. We need to do more of that, where we provide children with the information judgment-free. Judgment-free. I want to tell you a story. The day I abolished grading, I was miserable and wanted to quit teaching and decided that I was going to stop grading after I read my first Alfie Kohn article. And I was euphoric. I went into class and I was going to talk to the students about the assignment that I had in my possession. It was an essay. I was teaching language arts and science, and I had the students write an essay about the particle model of matter. And they had to show that they understood it. And so I discovered after reading my article the night before that the best thing I should do is not grade the assignment. But they were under the impression that I would grade it. So I showed up the next day and said to the students, I have great news, everybody. I'm going to give back your assignments, and I'm just going to give you feedback on the assignment. I'm just going to give you some advice on how to make them better and tell you some of the things I thought you did well, but I'm not going to grade it. And the reaction I got was not what I had expected. The look of displeasure was written all over them, and almost in unison, 30 students said back to me, "You mean we did this for nothing?" And they might have thought that what they said to me would have convinced me to grade it, but I quickly realized that I was onto something. You know, you're telling me that because I'm not going to grade this, you think we did this for nothing? Why did we do it in the first place? Our motivation matters, and in schools, we mostly get motivation wrong because it's mostly extrinsic. We're command and control, and we need to stop doing that. We need to start empowering and engaging kids and not just shooting for compliance. Grades are the tool we use to get compliance. There's no good reason to grade. The research is pretty clear here if we care to look at it. Can I just ask, can you think of a reason why we grade? What would be a popular reason why somebody would say, well, of course we have to have grades, and here's why. Can I have a reason?
To make comparisons.
To
make comparisons.
Sure, we have to rank and sort. What I say to that is that in that video there was no ranking and sorting necessary. There was nothing. I saw smiles. I saw a lot of people, really enjoying her experience. We didn't need to rank and sort her. And I would argue that we can rank and sort children to meet the system's needs and the politicians' needs while giving nothing the children need. So if we're really going to say that we're going to put children first, then we need to be authentic about that. We don't need to rank and sort in order to learn. Can I have another reason why we grade? Why might we?
To validate what I'm a bureaucrat. I paid a lot of money to you to run that school in your class to validate that you've actually done something of any use.
We have to trust teachers, and if we're going to start trusting them, then we have to be serious about this. And that means then that we would listen to teachers when they say things like this, and I do say this. I have absolutely no use for reducing children's learning for the convenience of people who will never walk into my children's school. If you don't know the color of my students' lockers, you don't get to tell me what to do. You have to actually show up. So if you want to know what's going on, I'm not going to provide you with that reductionist data. You have to show up and you have to see what the school looks like and what the children are doing. So we have to stop providing this data for people who don't want to visit schools. Somebody might say that we want to motivate. It gets motivation wrong. There's two kinds, extrinsic and intrinsic. Dan Pink wrote a book recently that was building on some of the work of Alfie Kohn's Punished by Rewards, and it goes even further back, some of the research on intrinsic versus extrinsic. I'll simplify it. There's two kinds of motivation, but they are inversely related. If you grow a child's extrinsic motivation, their intrinsic desire goes down. So my blog is called For the Love of Learning. If we actually want to encourage people to have a love for learning, then we need to start taking this seriously and looking at what the research tells us, because sometimes it's quite counterintuitive. Feedback. We might say we want to give grades so kids know where they stand. Well, grades constitute an extremely primitive form of feedback. It doesn't tell you how to get better, and it doesn't tell you what you've done well. So if we really want to look at the research and the science behind grading, it's a horrendous way of providing feedback. It's a conversation. Me telling you you're a B doesn't tell you anything, other than it might grow your ego. What replaces grading? I've come to see what Jerome Bruner, an American psychologist, said has become my teaching mantra, and that is, children should experience their successes and failures not as reward and punishment, but as information. I hang this in my classroom to remind me, but also to speak to the people who come into my room, what frames the mindset in my classroom. Children should experience their successes and failures not as reward and punishment, but as information. For me, that is a very powerful mindset and shift for how a classroom should be structured. This means classroom management has to look differently. We saw yesterday in that demo, Howard Gardner mentioned that the children are always watching, and they are. They're watching to see not what we say, but how we treat them. In particular, how will we treat them when they do something wrong? And if we use our power to hurt children, they will grow up to be adults who will also hurt children. Our assessment practices need to stop rewarding and punishing and they need to be just providing the information the children need to learn. Judgment-free. People will ask me, well, how do you assess? We need to start trusting teachers, because there is absolutely no substitute for what teachers see and hear every single day they teach and they work with children while they're still learning. Quite frankly, if you're telling me you need a test or a grade to find out what the kids are learning, my response or question back to you is, what have you been doing? Have you not been working with them? Should you not have observed the learning while they were learning? And if you haven't, then my question stands, what have you been doing? If you're a parent that needs tests and grades to know what your children are doing, what have you been doing? Have you not been talking with them? My children, I teach for 10 months out of the year, 5 days a week. I see them sometimes up to an hour or to 2 hours a day. That's a lot of time over 10 months. So our observations, we need to start trusting them. They're very important. They just don't fit on bar graphs, but that's okay. I would argue that some of the most important things we do in schools or in life is extremely difficult to measure and maybe impossible to measure. But that's okay, because anything that's important can still be observed and described. That's assessment. So for parents or for the bureaucrats, I don't understand the idea of inspectors. We don't have school inspectors in Canada. That concept is quite foreign to me. But if you want to know what's going on as a parent, I mean, the best evidence, if you want to know about children's learning, is their learning is the evidence. We have to stop reducing it to tests and grades, because it conceals. It always conceals more than it ever reveals. Let the learning speak for itself. So here's a real-life example. My students blog. We blog a lot. And so I tell parents, don't bother looking at Pearson's online grading program. I don't put anything on it, because I don't have any until report card time, because I'm mandated to do that, and that's fine, I do that. But if you want to know what your child's doing, go read their blog. Find out what they're writing about, because then you'll discover what they're thinking about, and then go talk to them about it. We need to start allowing the children's learning to speak for itself. Allow the learning to be transparent. Where we get ourselves into trouble, though, is if in schools we're not doing anything very valuable and the learning is hidden, then the parents might say, well, I need some information. Grades are better than nothing, and they're right. If there's no evidence, then they'll say, I need to see something. But we need to give them an alternative. One of the chapters in the book that I edited is about, it says, parents, they just want the grade. It's sort of true. But when you speak with them, if you show them some alternatives and show them, what would you rather? Would you like to see what little Johnny has done? Or do you want me just to show you the spreadsheet? They'll say, well, no, I want to see what Johnny's done. We have to make that more transparent. School for too long has hidden it behind our multiple choice tests and our quizzes. We got to make the learning more transparent. And we've seen yesterday how technology can make learning very visible. So grading without grading, people ask me, well, how do you put a grade on the report card? Because I do have to have a grade on the report card. It's a requirement for my employment. And I'm not prepared to lose my job. So how do I do this? I remember the day that I ended up emailing Alfie Cohn about this, and I asked him, Alfie, I haven't been grading. It's been fantastic. The children, we've just been learning. Imagine that. But now it's report card time. What the heck am I going to do? Because I have to put a grade on the report card. Well, where I come from, there's nowhere that it says you have to have a list of averages that you have to average together to come up with a final average. I just needed evidence. So I came up with 3 things. Because parents and people will ask me, how do you put a grade on the report card if you have no grades? Because I have no grade book. So I'll say, well, I look at the students' evidence in their portfolios. They can be paper portfolios or they can be electronic. It's just the stuff they've done. I look at it, and then I use my professional judgment. I've spent 10 months of the year with them. And then I ask them. Self-assessment is huge. So before I came here, I had to get my report cards done. 126 of the damn things. It took me a very long time because I asked the kids to write a blog post reflecting on their learning for the first 3 months. And it took them a while. And some of them, it was a very uncomfortable endeavor, having to self-assess themselves. And so they had to stop and think about how they were learning and then describe it in a blog post. And then I read what they wrote about themselves and used that as my primary document for making their report card. And yes, I gave them a grade because I had to. But before that, the students had not received not one grade, not one. The report card grade was the first grade they got from me all year. But the grade they got on the report card is not a surprise. They already know because I commented on their blog saying I agree or disagree with their reflection, and here's why. Here's my experience with detoxing students. I want to talk, I will say that grades are the school's drug of choice, and we're all addicted in some form. So I often have to detox children off of the grades. Stage one is intervention, where I come in and I say, we're not going to do this anymore. I'm stopping the game of school with all of this ranking and sorting and rewarding and punishing. We're going to take a break for a year while you're in my class. Stage two is where the students are in what I call a honeymoon sobriety. And so because I stopped talking about grades, the kids stopped talking about them. And we just learn. And there's a bit of a honeymoon period where things are really cool. And I think you show me a student who cares about grades, and I'll show you a student who has parents or adults in their lives that are encouraging them to make them important. We're not born. We're all born with an intrinsic desire to learn, but we don't have to care about grading. We learn that. I think we need to unlearn it. Stage three, withdrawal symptoms occur. This is after the honeymoon, and students start to almost get what Alfie Kohn describes as this existential vertigo, where the kids will actually come up to you and say, well, I need you to grade me. I need you to tell me what I am. And what's really fascinating is this is not just the high achievers who want A's, although you'll get that, because they'll say, give me my A. I've earned it. But I've actually found students who have been, who go to school and their unofficial tagline is, the beatings will continue until morale improves. The ones that continually get F's or whatever you want to say, failing grades, even they will say, I need you to give me my grade. And the good question, why is that? And I feel like we can become addicted to things that are not good for us, whether they're good to us or not. It's no different than why does a heroin addict go back? Do you not see what it's doing to you? And so I have had whether you're a high achiever, in the middle, or low achiever, they will experience this withdrawal where I need you to tell me what I am, because that's the only way I know, even if it's not good. But if I can get the kids past that, then we go into, for the rest of the year, something that looks like sustained sobriety. And so they get off the grades and they just learn. And we just have conversations. And it's really cool. And for the most of the year, I can get kids to just talk about learning. And we don't have to talk about grades and ranks being ranked and sorted. But then comes the end of the year, I always get some form of relapse. Because the kids start to realize, wait a minute, you're not going to be my teacher next year. And quite often I teach grade 8, and in Canada, sometimes grade 8 is the end of middle school, and grade 9 is in the high school. So that's a huge adjustment for kids. And so the kids will often go into a relapse where, what have we been doing all year? Have you been truly preparing me for high school? You're not setting me up for failure, are you? There's a lot of uncertainty. And so I've actually, I remember one year Sarah came to me at lunchtime and said, Mr. Bauer, I'm going to high school next year. I said, yes, Sarah, you are. There's going to be a lot of tests and grades and homework in high school. Yes, Sarah, there probably is. We haven't been doing any of that this year. Have you been preparing me for high school? Or am I going to get in a lot of trouble next year. I said, well, Sarah, go get your portfolio. So she ran off and she brought her portfolio back. And I said, Sarah, show me what we've been doing this year. So she showed me all of the essays we've been writing and all of the projects we've done. And in the end, I said, Sarah, have you been learning this year? Oh, yeah, I've learned a lot. I said, well, Sarah, can you tell me a better way to get prepared for high school? She closed her portfolio and went out for recess. That's all I had to say. But I had to reassure her that I had to ask her, have we been learning? Yes. Can you tell me a better way to prepare for high school? No. I'm going to go out and play now. It was really cool. It was really neat to see that look of realization. But we get so used to school, the water, that when we don't have the water anymore, we sometimes think something's wrong, even though nothing's wrong. Because we just get used to school, right? It's not good or bad, we're just used to it. Stage 6 is mindful reflection, and I remember when Stephanie came to see me a year after I had been done teaching her. She came to see me, and she's because I was teaching her younger sister. It was parent-teacher interviews, and she said to me, "Hey, Mr. Bauer, I came back to visit." And those are always cool times, right, for teachers when kids come back and they want to visit with you, because that tells you, like, they chose to come talk to you out of their day. Like, that's really cool. And so she came back, and I said, "Oh, how are things?" "Oh, good. How's high school?" There's a lot of homework." "Oh yeah, what's your homework?" "Mostly biology this term." "Okay, why? What are you doing in biology?" "Mostly getting ready for tests." "Okay." And I said, "Well, how do you feel about that?" And he says, "It's all right. I'm getting through it. But I miss your class." And the sentimentality that I get from kids is that, quite frankly, they, after experiencing it, even though they're going to other classes where they may get back into the water and they're back into tests and grades, their reflection tends to be, that was pretty cool. I appreciated that moment where we got to take a break from the game of school, where the teacher and the students exchange winks that says, the teachers say, "Well, I'll pretend to teach," and the students say, "Well, I'll pretend to learn. It won't be a lot of fun, but maybe we'll get out of here quickly." Right? It's nice to take a pause from that so we can actually do something authentic. Another Sarah. This is one of my favorite stories to tell about grades. One time I had Sarah come up to me. We were learning science, and it was a cells and systems unit where we were learning about life. And she said to me, "Mr. Bauer, can I do a poster on breast cancer?" And I said, "Sure, Sarah." Because students know that they have some say. They have some choice in my class. They can come up with projects and things they want to do. Yes, there are some things I have to have the kids do because I have a mandated curriculum. But I try to free up as much time as I can for things that kids are interested in. And Sarah said, "Can I do a poster on breast cancer?" "Sure, Sarah, that's up to you." So she said, "Well, one more thing, Mr. Bauer, do you think I could come in at lunch and start it?" I said, "Sarah, you can come in at lunch, but that's your time. I'm not telling you to come in at lunch because recess is important. It's the long-lost fourth R, if that's a thing, that we never talk about. Free unstructured play outside for children is at an all-time low, and it's very disturbing." So I said, "Sure, if you want to come in at lunch, you can." So she did. And so she did this over a period of days. And I had a few kids in at lunch, and they were working on things willingly. And she looks up to me and says, "Mr. Bauer, will I get an A on this?" This was a really weird question because it was February. So the kids had been with me for months. They knew Another kid even interrupted, and I didn't even get to reply. And another kid said, "Sarah, why are you asking Mr. Bauer that? You know he doesn't grade anything." And she didn't say anything, and I could tell something was up. So I turned to Sarah and said, "Sarah, why are you asking me that?" She didn't reply. She wouldn't even look at me. And she started to tear up. So I said, "Sarah, put the pencil crayons down. What's up? Why are you asking me this?" And she said, "I just really want to get an A." I said, "Why?" "Because my auntie has breast cancer." I said, "Sarah, can you tell me a better reason than that to do this poster? Your auntie has breast cancer and you love her and you want to know what's going on. That's the best reason to do a poster on breast cancer. Can we see how, having a kid say, I'm doing it for the A just cheapens the whole moment? We need to stop cheapening education and reducing it to these arbitrary numbers so that we can rank and sort. Because there's a very humanistic thing here going on. The story continues, and there's some good and bad to this. Years later, my daughter, Kaylee, was going to kindergarten. And in her kindergarten class was Sarah's auntie. She was working in the classroom. And we had met, and we discovered each other. Like, I discovered, oh, you're Sarah's aunt, and oh, you were Sarah's teacher. And then we talked about, and she said, yes, I saw the poster. I remember this very clearly, that Sarah had done this poster, and she started to tear up. Years later, we're talking about this, and she's tearing up about the moment that between her and her niece. And so we enjoyed the moment talking about it. And then she said, and you're a teacher too. She said, and your whole no grading thing. I said, that's very interesting. And I go, yes, I talk about us removing tests and grades from classes, from school. She goes, yes, but there's some things we just can't do anything about it. And I thought to myself, and we went on our separate ways. And I thought, that wasn't your attitude towards breast cancer. We didn't just accept it. You fought it. And she won. Why can't we have that same determination towards changing and improving school? But often it's our memories that get in our way. And I'd like to see us change our mindset about, we need to reject fatalism and reject the idea that school has to be a certain way. It doesn't have to be. We can reject cancer. We can reject the cancerous things that are happening in our education that are hurting our students and hurting our children. I'd like to take a moment now, and I'd like to have a bit of a discussion with you about. You might have questions, but I'd like to actually not just say ask for questions. I'd like to ask you, what is there something that I have poked or prodded, or maybe inspired you to think about education or about school? And I'd like just to have a bit of a conversation or a discussion. So I'd like to ask you right now, what's on your mind after I've been up here for a little while talking? What's on your mind? Graham?
I loved your talk, by the way. I want my kids to be taught by teachers like you. There was just something that really struck with me early on in your talk was about the teacher paying attention, the engaged teacher, to understand what's going on in the kids' world and so on. And I think that's absolutely right. But I'm also worried about the fact that certainly in the UK, but also other parts of the world, the teaching profession is being de-skilled.
Yes.
You can go to school, go to university, come straight out of university, do a 6-week course in teaching, and then suddenly you're in charge of a class of kids. They don't have the skills that you're talking about. You clearly do. And a lot of kids, things happening at home. I mean, it could be things outside the school, but the teachers are not picking this up because they've become so de-skilled that they are effectively processing these kids through for these grades. I'm wondering how to take what you're talking about and scale that across a school. I mean, is it you working in a school? Is that scaled, or the teachers in your school working like you? No. So how does that fit? I'm just curious about that, really, about the de-skilling of teachers, and how to take what you're talking about and scale that up so that all kids can have the benefit of teaching like yours.
Well, I might be a good teacher now. I do think I'm a good teacher now, but I wasn't. I was terrible when I started, because nobody's born. Good teachers are not born, they're made, they're created. And we need to have excellent teacher preparation, and I don't say teacher training. It's not training, it's an education. You're being educated to be a teacher so that we can be very mindful about what we're actually doing with children. We have to allow teachers to be created in universities and then go into a job and then continue their education as they're working with children. So we need to have better mentorship programs where, I'll just throw this out there. What if our first-year teachers worked half-time but got paid full-time? Half of their work would be actually teaching in the classroom like a teacher, and the other half is working with a highly skilled and highly educated veteran teacher. We're paying them well, and we should pay teachers extremely well. But their teaching workload would be half of a regular teacher because they're spending so much time learning about how to do it. Teacher workload is so heavy in most countries that teachers are so busy teaching they don't have any time to learn how to become better teachers. We have to reject that. But we have to put our money where our mouth is. So if we're going to talk about how important education is, we hear corporations blather on about collaboration and creativity. I don't believe them, because they're the same corporations that ignore poverty and sustain inequity. But if they are really going to mean it, then we have to demand that they do better, and then they pay their taxes, and they fund public education systems, because our democracy, not our economy, is dependent on public education. So teachers start off terrible. I was terrible. I'm ashamed of some of the things I did. I remember yelling at a kid saying, he had done something. He didn't do his homework and wasn't listening to me. So I said, give me 50 push-ups. And the little jerk told me no. At the time, I was so mad at him. And now I look back and go, good for you. I'm glad you told me no. What a stupid thing to do for me, But I had to learn that. That was hard for me. I didn't want to look in the mirror that day and see, and realize that I probably shouldn't have been assigning homework like I was, and I certainly shouldn't have treated him like that in front of everybody. And I was proud of him for rejecting, But I have to learn that, and I had to, in order to become good like this, teachers need to have supportive administrators, and they have to be teachers. Like, I can't believe in some places that principals don't have to be teachers. What? That would be like me running a hospital. I don't have a clue what I'd be doing because I'm not a nurse and I've never been a doctor. Our teachers, our principals and administrators need to be master teachers. Yes?
Can you give us a sense? I loved what you were saying. I agree with these principles. I have some real world workarounds, as we all do, to how you get around these things. But I would love to, I don't have a sense of what your school day looks like in terms of content, method, tools. I just love a little glimpse into what it looks like, not on an abstract level, but like what you actually do in a class.
I show up at 8 o'clock, and last year I drove my daughter to school because my school times worked out for where I worked and where my daughter went to school. So I got to have a conversation with my daughter every morning as we drove from our farm into town. Red Deer has about 100,000 people, but now I changed schools, so now I don't get to have my morning talk with my daughter, and so I drive to school at 8, and I get there, and for a few minutes I'm in the hallway saying good morning to all of my students. I make this an important part of my day. Standing in the hallway, people call it supervision, but I'm showing the kids that I'm here, and I'm here to say good morning to you, and then they come in my room and. We're on the computers a lot. I don't have enough computers. I have a laptop cart of 30, and I have 33 kids in my class. So we're not funding education well enough. What does an underfunded education system look like? It's when teachers are thankful that some of the kids don't show up so they can meet everybody's needs. That's a sad statement. So then I often start off class by welcoming everybody and talking about what we're going to do for the day. So we have the kids will say, "Do we have the laptops?" "Yep, I have them booked." So they jump on the laptops, and this year I'm blogging a lot. The kids are blogging, and so the kids have gotten used to, what are we writing today? It's just a given, right? And sometimes the kids get to write about whatever they want, and sometimes I'll say, today we're learning about democracy. Or my students, right now, my subplans, my kids, we watch Robert Reich's documentary, Inequality for All, and in social studies. And so they are blogging about inequality, poverty, and inequity. And so they are watching the documentary. We watched it as a class, and now they're watching it independently. I have a school Netflix account, so if the kids do not have their own Netflix account, I will log them in for them, and so they can watch it. And some of the kids have their own account. They go through the video, and they are looking for things to write about. I do give them some guidance and say, because I am a teacher, and I say, you know, here's some of the stuff I need you to have in your post, and then I want you to have more than that too. I teach language arts and social studies, so I see I have 6 classes in a day, and I teach my grade 6s twice. I have them for language arts and social studies, but I told them we're not separating the 2 subjects. We're going to call it humanities. So as far as they're concerned, I teach humanities. This is my workaround, though. On the report card, there's no such thing as humanities. I have to report on social studies and language arts. It's the same grade for both classes. Does that help you a little bit? And I get 30 minutes at lunch hour to myself, and I have a 30-minute prep. My classes are 50 minutes each. I don't have enough time in the day to prepare, and so I use my own time to get things done.
I've got the microphone.
You do?
Possession is 9 points. I've got a son who's a school teacher. He left the corporate world to go into school teaching, and this year he has resigned because he wants to spend his time now improving the teaching of teachers. And he's doing a lot of that pro bono, actually. Luckily, he's married to a doctor, so he can afford to do that. But one of the things that and I loved your talk, and I agree with Graham that I would love my grandchildren to have a teacher like you. One of the big takeouts from my son's 10 years in teaching, and this is in the UK, is that he's more than 60% of his children in his classes come from dysfunctional families. And he would say that he actually is providing all the parenting that those kids are ever going to get. And as for parents pitching up to his teacher consultation sessions, sometimes 1 out of 30 parents will pitch up. They're no more interested in their kids learning than they are. They are busy surviving themselves, and they're hoping that somebody's looking after their kids. It's almost child-minding.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering if how much of our of what you're saying has some sort of bedrock in functional families.
I experience every day the effects of poverty, and we have to stop ignoring what poverty does. And so poverty, I define poverty in more ways than just money. So there's poverty of love, right? They don't have enough love in their life, right? So I have a larger definition of that term, because I don't see things just through an economic lens. We have got to stop talking about education as just a better way to get kids to have better jobs. Yes, I want my students to be employed, but this is only a fraction of what goes on. When I worked in the hospital, working with children who came through the emergency room because they had just finished trying to kill themselves, they were being. This was a symptom of being marinated in abuse and neglect. So not only should we not see education just through an economic lens, we need to stop seeing what we're talking about right now as an education problem. It is not an education problem. This is a societal problem. Yeah. And teachers, the job of teaching is hard enough. Now I'm going to be a parent for all of those students too. Good grief, I had a hard time just being a teacher. Now I can't be a parent too for them. It is unsustainable to expect teachers to spend more time and effort with other people's children than their own. I have 2 children. I have to go home to them at some point. If I'm not supported enough to do that, Either I'm going to start to be a bad parent to my own kids, or I have to be a bad teacher to someone else's. But that's what an underfunded public education system does. We have to stop putting teachers in that situation. So we have to stop. If one more person puts up here what the United States test scores look like, come on. 1 in 4 children live in poverty, and they call themselves a first world country. It's disgusting. They should be ashamed. And Alberta, Canada has a problem too. We 1 in 7 in Alberta children are living in poverty. That's not okay. That's not an education problem, though. Stop trying to pretend that it's got anything to do with curriculum, because it doesn't.
It turns out an education problem.
Yes. But we have to reframe it, because otherwise we are expecting schools to solve the problem of poverty of economic, but also of love and relationships and family. Schools can't do it. And they can't do it alone. And we're expecting them to, and that's a major problem.
Let's for the last intervention now.
Some of the themes that you're saying here are spreading. I mean, you heard yesterday, I'm working in an education system that's pulling in 2 directions. What I hear from you is a plea for almost a complete reprofessionalization of teaching. But yet, whilst you've achieved that, how do you see that could become pervasive and spread across a system, but in a way that is not top-down?
We have to... I believe that I'm a better teacher now because I've stopped doing things to children and I work with them. That's a mindset that I've taken on, where I'm not here to command and control children. I'm here to work with them and encourage them and empower them. We need to do the same thing to teachers. Teachers are often the most idealistic and utopian-loving people. They get into teaching because they want to help kids. They get into teaching because they want to make a difference in the world. What a crackpot idea that is. Let's support them so that they can keep teaching like that for the rest of their career. Too many teachers realize that the bureaucracy of the system does not allow them to teach in the way that they aspire to. So let's stop doing that. Let's actually nurture their love for children and their love for learning and for making a difference in the world, and support them to continue that, so that they don't just think that when they look back after 20 or 30 years that was a naive idea. They get into the profession for all of the best reasons, and the ones who get in it for the wrong reasons don't last. But right now, you think we've got a student dropout problem. We have a teacher dropout problem. We treat them so poorly, they leave. And I'm really worried that after, we keep treating teachers like this, when we start, with the use of standardized tests and merit pay and all this garbage, we treat them so poorly that at some point I'm wondering who's going to want to be a teacher.
It's happening already.
It's happening already. I know. And if I want to get depressed, I think about it. But then I salvage my mindset around this, and I have to remind myself that teaching is an admirable thing to get into, and people get into it for the right reasons, and so we just need to do a better job of nurturing that, and support them. We don't support teachers. Great teachers don't need surveillance; they need support. Our jobs are hard enough.
Well,
thank you.
It's time. I think that we can go on talking about that, because your speech has been very inspiring. I think demanding, emotionally demanding too. And I think there are some final remarks that has been said now that are very, very important. So we really need teachers like you. We need teachers feeling themselves as someone who are really helping our children to become adults, to become citizens. And I agree with you that not only for being employed, they will probably need to be employed, but this is not just about education, this is also about training, it's also about other issues. And I think the most important competence for our children, and let me take something that was said yesterday by Nuria Miró, is to help them to become citizens, to become people that will live in our society and that will lead the society to be better for us. So, Joe, thank you so much for your speech. Sorry?
No,
just
very funny. I have seen just recently a video on the web where there is a conversation between two teachers. One who says, well, they don't pay me to love the children. They pay me to give them certain amount of stuff, knowledge. And the other says, well, you know, the thing is that normally the children do not learn from the teachers they don't love. And I think it's a very simple and very powerful statement.
Yeah. So thank you very much, Joe, and thank you to all of you, because it's very, very easy to be a chairman of this session when everything goes so smoothly as it was. And please, an applause for him.